Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the Hard Truth Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time!
Three on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game!
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Float game for the win! Ayler's gone. Goodbye. Touchdown, Indy. Woo! IU. America. They got a football team now.
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome aboard, everybody, and I hope you had a great weekend. Welcome into the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Monday. Jim Coyle with you as always, and joined by our good friend Greg Rakestraw from the ISB Sports Network. As the Colts were off this weekend, and so was Greg. He just said, "The heck with it. I'm not doing anything." Right, Greg?
2/3 of that is true. The fact that this time of year I have a Friday night off, which I took on purpose because my daughter had an orchestra performance. So good thing about the basketball season is I can kind of bug out for a couple of nights when I need to. And then on Sunday, the first day off since Labor Day weekend from a Colts perspective, since they had the last bye, not until week number 14. Now on Saturday, my typical speed, I went to the region, did a college football game, then drove back to Brownsburg to be more specific, so I could go do the final game of the Sneakers for Santa shootout, where Braylon Mullen scored 41 as Greenfield Central beat Ben Davis. But for me, having Friday night off and Sunday off during the football season, we'll count that as the weekend off.
Heck yeah, man. I hear you. It's kind of a similar thing. For me, I thought I was going to have the weekend off with Indiana having the off weekend on football, and basketball was Friday night, back Monday night again, but forgot about the press conferences yesterday for the college football playoffs, but that's okay. An exciting, fun weekend as the state of Indiana, Greg, right in the heart of this college football playoff, because you've got the only two states that have multiple teams in this, Texas and Indiana. Texas, very well known for being a football state. Indiana, yeah, maybe not so much. But the Hoosiers and the Irish heading to the college football playoff. So that's going to be a cool thing for those within the state to see.
Absolutely. And the fact that, and, you know, I think you kind of alluded to this, or maybe his other show that I did, you know, a few weeks ago, saying, hey, you know, the concept of Indiana and Notre Dame playing each other in this, like, hey, it's possible, but it's not like this is something that, you know, has been dreamed about, just because Indiana has never been close to the conversation about being at the top of the Big Ten. At least they haven't in the last 35 years. And obviously this being the first year of the expanded playoff of going from 4 to 12, you know, it's just Indiana and Notre Dame in football have operated in different orbits. You know, so it's great that they're together, but, you know, for the next 2 weeks, I'm not sure that there's going to be all of this rivalry conversation, because, again, I can speak from experience here in Indianapolis. There's just nowhere near the number of Notre Dame football fans that there used to be. And I saw a lot of these posts the last couple of days, and it's true and they're funny. And it really relates to the last time they played each other back in 91. You know, in the early 90s, a very common fandom was, well, Notre Dame's my football team, but IU is my basketball team. And I can just tell you this, Jim, in this area, that doesn't exist anymore. Notre Dame is much more of a national brand than they are an Indiana brand.
Absolutely. And I agree with that 1,000%. You don't think of, I don't know half of the people, I bet half of the people outside of the state that just hear Notre Dame probably don't realize where South Bend actually is as far
Right.
as a state. I don't know that they realize that's not like some district up there at the top of the state next to the lake. It's actually part of Indiana. So that's kind of funny. I'll tell you how old I am, Greg. Unfortunately, I'm old enough that I was at the game the last time Indiana and Notre Dame played in 91 up in South Bend with Trent Green at quarterback. You can still see the touchdown Jesus from the stands then. Someone pointed that out yesterday. And that's actually something that I definitely remember, because when I went back to Notre Dame after they had done the addition, I'm like, why on God's green earth, no pun intended, did they not leave a little cutout right there, a la Kansas City, and so you can still see the touchdown Jesus? Because you can't.
So
I'm like, dumb.
Couple of things I would point out. The idea is that Jesus can probably still see the game if he wants to. Maybe have other bigger things to work on. Secondly, Jesus ain't accounting for 20,000 extra season ticket holders, Jim. You got to raise money. Different type of Jesus there. But
He's
do you know
the empty spaces into money, is he?
Exactly. Water to wine, yes. Empty spaces, season ticket revenue, not so much, Jim. Do you know the historical significance of the IU Notre Dame game from September 7th of 1991?
Do not.
Okay. That is the first game of what is now the 34 years of NBC's television contract with the University of Notre Dame. The first game that aired on NBC nationwide television was the season opener of 1991, a 49-27 win by Notre Dame over Indiana University.
I did not realize that. I realized the 3 touchdown difference. I forget. I remember it was a game that was closer than that. It seemed, at least. But and also Trent Green was Indiana's quarterback for IU fans going back there. May have forgotten how well he played back in the days for Bill Mallory. But man, that was a long time ago, and they're scheduled to play again, Greg, in like 2030.
Right.
But this kind of moves the schedule up a little bit, and it's kind of a big deal, because I noticed immediately people posting things, and I even heard it on the reveal show before the show was over. They were hearing that ticket prices for the Indiana Notre Dame game were outrageously above anything else, any other game that there was at the moment.
The only bummer for the folks in South Bend, I would assume the hotel market just dried up, because everybody's going to drive to the game unless you're a Notre Dame fan who's more of a national fan, which there's obviously a lot of those that come in, for game weekends multiple times during the course of the season. But everybody else, the parking concession is going to do very well in and around South Bend and in and around campus. And let's face it, there frankly will be a plenty of on-campus parking, because the students won't be there, but they will have no problem filling that stadium. But yeah, I saw some getting the door prices of $1,700 is what I have seen for that game. And again, I think that'll only go up, Jim.
And it's crazy. And I think that is mainly because these teams have not played for so long. Obviously, there's interest in the game itself. Indiana is a very good team. Notre Dame, obviously a good team, and then the uniqueness of them not having played in 1,000 years while being hours apart adds to that mystique. But other than that, I'm like, okay, what is the driving force behind the nature of everybody wanting to be at this game?
The proximity of Indiana fans to go to the game, and the unique nature of Indiana being so historically unsuccessful in football and now on this stage. That to me is the driving force. And again, while ticket prices are higher, like I said, if you're an Indiana fan, you don't have to buy a hotel room. You don't have to buy a plane ticket. You don't have to fill up your car with gas. If you got a quarter of a tank, you can probably make it and get there to the game. That's the reason why I think this thing skyrocketed immediately.
Yeah, I will say this, but the prices to get to Austin, Texas, whoo, they were not. It was not going to be a cheap ride there. So much greatly appreciated that this is the case. Although I have heard that hotel prices in the area are astronomical. So they're trying to make up for it in one way or another.
Absolutely.
What is your week looking like now? I know that you had a kind of an easier weekend. The Colts were off as they will head to to Denver next in a game. So it's a good time for them to kind of regroup, heal some little bit of ticky-tack wounds and get back to it. But they're on kind of a more positive trajectory as much as they have been all season right now.
Well, simply put, Jim, this is the Super Bowl for the Colts. To be blunt, this likely decides what the postseason looks like. We may have 3 very nondescript weeks in terms of which teams are going to qualify for the AFC postseason, because in all honesty, there's really 2 teams behind the Denver Broncos, and they're both 2 games back in terms of Miami, who won yesterday over the Jets in overtime. The Colts had the bye. The Broncos had the bye. So the Broncos are 8-5. The Chargers, after losing late to the Chiefs last night, are also 8-5. And then whomever finishes as the runner-up between the Steelers and Ravens will finish as the 5 seed and as the first wild card. But again, those teams are really clear of everybody else behind them with just 4 games left to play. The Colts play at the Broncos, and if they have any prayer of making the postseason, they have to win it. But again, what is after them are 3 teams that have won a combined 8 games, and 3 teams who all played yesterday and scored a combined 27 points. So the Colts would still need to get some help. They'd have to have the Broncos lose one of their last 3 games. The Broncos do play the Chiefs the last game of the regular season. However, the Chiefs could easily have everything wrapped up and might be parking guys, even though they could have the bye. I think the hope from the Colts' perspective is the Chiefs have to keep winning to ensure they have that first round bye. The Bills' loss yesterday didn't help that. The Chiefs now have a little more of a buffer between themselves, the Steelers, the Bills, and the Ravens. But simply put, if the Colts lose this game against the Broncos, they're down 3 and lose the tiebreaker to Denver, they will not be a playoff team. And so this is their Super Bowl. Sunday, 4:25 in Denver. They win, they have a legitimate shot. They lose, you're thinking about playing for next year.
It's amazing, really, that those type of games, determining games, are already here. But they are. We're in December. It just doesn't seem like we're that far along in the NFL season. Even though we've reached the conclusion of the college football season, it seems like the NFL goes further and further, especially of importance. But these games seems like they matter more sooner than they have in the past.
Part of it is the way the AFC is structured this year, in just that, man, there's 6 bad teams in the AFC. The Jets are terrible. The Bengals are surprisingly bad. The Browns are surprisingly bad. The Jaguars and Titans stink. The Raiders are god-awful. The Patriots are none too good. I just rattled off, like 6 or 7 teams. This is unique in the fact of there is such a wide berth between the 7 playoff teams, maybe a couple of teams that are stuck in the middle, like Miami and the Colts. And frankly, I think Miami is only in that group because of the injury to Tua Tagovailoa. When he has played, I want to say they might be 5-2 at this point in time, or maybe all 6 of their wins have come with he as the quarterback this year. So again, it's just kind of a unique year. And the Colts, like the old song, they're stuck in the middle. They're not amongst the worst teams. They're not amongst the best teams, to be blunt. But again, the way it plays out, they've got an opportunity, but they have to beat Denver on Sunday afternoon.
Oh, man, we have got a lot of big games coming up. Of course, the Colts' big game with Denver and the Indiana Hoosiers taking on the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Who had that on their bingo card at the start of this season? Indiana and Notre Dame.
If you had said Indiana and Notre Dame were going to play each other in December, you would have said, hey, that's great that Mike Woodson has picked up an in-state rivalry. It's a quality non-conference game. The thought would not have been Marcus Freeman and Curt Cignetti squaring off. And I've already heard 2 of the top T-shirts so far would be Catholics versus cigarettes. And then secondarily, Rudy would have started in Bloomington. So you can take your pick as to what your favorite T-shirt might be.
Well, and also I thought of this yesterday, Rudy versus Hoosiers. This is Rudy versus not Bobby Plump, but what was the character's name?
Jimmy Chitwood. And so
Jimmy
obviously,
because Angelo Pizzo is the guy behind both of those movies.
There are three people that need to be there, and I don't know. I would assume this person is still with us. I really don't know. But Angelo Pizzo would be one. David Anspaugh would be two. Both those guys are happy and healthy. I know both those guys. They're doing fine. Hopefully they're at the game.
Pizzo's right here in Bloomington.
But the other would be Chelsea Ross. And most don't know who Chelsea Ross is. That would be the assistant coach. Strap your rear end to a pine rail and you on the Mona Online. He also played Dan Devine in Rudy. Right. So he would be the actor that would bridge both of the two movies. So and Chelsea is also better known for being Harris in Major League. So I don't know if he is still with us. I hope he is. But I would hope that maybe all three of those guys might be like maybe they're presenting the game ball to start things off next Friday night.
That is a great idea. I did not think of that. Man, what a great mind there. But I appreciate you, friend. Hopefully we can get that done. I hope you have a relaxing week. I know it's going to be a busy weekend.
It will be. So from a high school, we got a cool high school basketball week at ISC, and I know Fish is coming up next, so I'll keep this quick. Wednesday night, Lawrence North, Lawrence Central. Friday night, New Pal and Greenfield Central, Gizzy versus Mullins. Those are two Indiana All-Stars, and clearly Mullins is now the Mr. Basketball favorite far and away. But then Saturday, Forum Tip-Off Classic, 6 great games at Southport. Catch all of those at iscsportsnetwork.com. And 4 of those you can see in the Indianapolis area on MyNDTV 23.
People, you can catch everything you need just by listening to us and following the directions of Greg and the other fine folks. Make sure you go to ISC Sports Network and keep up with all the great content Greg and crew are pumping out, baby. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Jim.
You betcha. Greg Rakestraw joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Up next, the voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fisher, will join us as we've got a little bit to talk about with the Hoosiers. We're back with all that and more right after these messages. If you're looking for a great gift for the Indiana sports fan in your life, just go to isbradio.itemorder.com and you'll find plenty of options, including sweatshirts, hoodies, t-shirts, pullovers, caps, and much more, including our Welcome to the Sig 10 line that benefits the local Boys and Girls Club. That's isbradio.itemorder.com. isbradio.itemorder.com.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at bendavischevrolet.com and bendavisford.com.
Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code RADIO20 and get $20 off your first order.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com.
Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Maria in Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday. Coming to you from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Jim Goyle with you now, and joined by the voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fisher. And Don, I guess it was kind of a weekend off in words only, but a lot still going on behind the scenes. Indiana had a basketball game on Friday. They've got a game tonight. We've had the CFP final reveal yesterday. And I guess we might as well start there because that's the biggest story on the books. Indiana faced not only in the CFP, which we assume, but they're going to be facing a Notre Dame team that has the fans jumping.
What do you mean jumping?
Well, I mean, they're excited about this game. They seem to be really excited about this matchup, which it was going to be a great matchup regardless. They were going to play a Georgia or a Texas or somebody of great stature. But to not have to even leave the state to play a team and a game of this magnitude, pretty big.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question, Jim, that people are excited about this matchup. I actually said a couple of weeks ago, before everything came out, that I thought I'd love to see Indiana play Notre Dame. I've always liked that matchup. We don't get to play them very often. 1991 was the only time.
It's been a little bit, Don.
91 was the last time we played them, and the only time in my 52 years that Notre Dame and Indiana have been on the football field together. Unfortunately, it's still at Notre Dame, so I'd like it for it to be a home game, but it didn't work out that way. I think we all kind of knew that was probably Indiana was going to end up being on the road no matter who they were paired up against at this point. But the fact of the matter is Indiana is in the playoffs, and that's the one thing you can count on that this program has been able to do this year, which has shocked the nation, so to speak, in what Curt Cignetti has been able to accomplish with this football team.
Oh, without question, and it's going to continue because Indiana has the opportunity to go to Notre Dame and continue their season. And there's no reason to think that they can't get that job done. It is going to be definitely an effort required of the highest magnitude. But Indiana is a very, very solid football team. I think that they probably learned a lot of lessons from the game at Ohio State in that, Coach Cignetti has talked about the noise being the significant problem for them that really led to a lot of their issues. And I believe that, including the punt. When you have that kind of noise, and if people, I've tried to explain to them, I've been to Michigan is the loudest place on planet Earth I've ever been to. And I know that Ohio State is loud as well, but this noise, it not only is you can't hear anything, it distracts you. It takes your thinking away. So when a team that is not used to that, I can see how that affected them, but the good thing is Notre Dame is not quite that loud. And secondly, they've learned from that. And I think I mentioned a couple times shows it back with you that I think they should practice with their earbuds in. So they got Guns N' Roses on high and you can't hear anything, but
they actually have. They actually have, Jim. I mean, Coach Cignetti has said we practice with the crowd noise ever since that ball game. Every practice they go in there and they've got crowd noise that they're dealing with. So and here's the thing. In my opinion, I think Ohio State had the crowd noise elevated through microphones and all that kind of thing. I've never heard it any louder, any place that I've ever been than what we saw at Ohio Stadium.
And I heard a couple of people not
say
that the noise level was unbelievable. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's a lot of people, but it's like when I talk about Michigan is below grade and it's a complete bowl. And the Horseshoe's not quite like that. Still has 100,000 people, but boy, that noise level, it really affects you.
Well, it does, and you've got to be. And obviously, they worked on a silent count, but maybe they had some tells in their silent count snaps and things like that. Whatever the case, I guarantee you that Cignetti has taken care of it heading into this matchup with Notre Dame.
I heard him say I believe it was on one of the ESPN hits he was doing that, and verbatim, I will never do that again. He was talking to going to the straight silent count, but it was in a way where Ohio State easily picked it up and was able to just time their blitzes, and you could see that. So good thing for Indiana. That game probably helped them immensely in going into this situation, because
no question,
face that, you'd rather face it then than face it now.
Right. There's no question it helped. They will be prepared for any kind of crowd noise situation I think that they will face in any of these ball games upcoming. And Notre Dame is the first test. And there's no question Notre Dame's got a tremendous ground game. I mean, tremendous ground game. But Indiana has a defense that's been one of the best in the Big Ten and in the country this year against the run. So this is going to be an interesting matchup in that regard alone. The question is, what kind of weather will be on that particular night? Will it be snowing? You never know with the lake effects and all those kinds of things that they deal with up there. Predicting the weather at this time of year is probably a gamble at best, a 50-50 deal. And right now they're saying it's going to be 30 and clear. We'll see. You don't want to get carried away.
Weather forecast that is 2 weeks out. I can promise you that.
Exactly.
Don, I'm old enough, or I'm old enough. I guess I could stop when I said I'm old. I'm old. I was at that game in '91, not with you, but in with you in spirit. I was there at covering that. I was just starting out in my measly career at WLKY in Louisville, and I remember being at that game and how big of a deal it was. And
it was.
It really was huge. I had a koozie, and it's been lost since then, that had that game stamped on it and all that. And for these teams to not play for this duration is crazy when they play Purdue as often as they do. I'm just a little shocked that it hasn't happened, but how the irony of it happening in the college football playoff. And this is a golden opportunity for Indiana to really stamp the legitimacy of their program. Not that they need to do that, in my opinion, but unfortunately you do need to do that for certain people outside of the program who are not seeing it the same way.
Right. There's no question. From the perspective of this, this has been a historical season at Indiana. It's accomplished more than we could have ever imagined going into the year because of the newness of the coach, the coaching staff, the players that they brought in. You would have thought if they would have had an 8-4 season or a 9-3 season, this would have been a phenomenal year. But Indiana's had a tremendous season, a historic season with the 11 wins against just one loss. And they beat Michigan in the process there as well, which is, that's probably the highlight game of the year in the sense of who they played, so to speak. But when you look at this Indiana football team, you can see what Curt Cignetti has done. You can see the improvement, the ability to move the football with an offense that is capable of both running it and throwing it. Everything that we've seen this year has been special. And for Indiana to play Notre Dame at Notre Dame and win that ball game, it's beyond the pale, so to speak, because you would have never expected that at the beginning of this season. So all I can tell you is be excited. Be excited about the matchup. Be excited about the opportunity and the fact that this season is not over with, and they've got a chance to move on in the playoff if they win.
Absolutely. And to do it in this manner, I mean, like I said, it would have been cool to see Indiana do that, where if it was between the hedges, if it was in Austin, it wouldn't have mattered. But being at Notre Dame and doing it in that stadium, to me, it just does a little bit more, because you've got the Notre Dame's a national team and their recruiting is national, but they still are one of those programs that if there's a 5-star player in the state of Indiana, Notre Dame is going to be one of the teams he's looking at, and it's not traditionally been Indiana.
Right.
This is also a way to change those perceptions.
No question. It's huge. There's no question in that regard. And in the state, let's face it, Notre Dame has been the football school in the state. Indiana, Purdue have been secondary citizens, so to speak, in that regard. So this would be a huge win for Indiana. There's no question about it. But let's face facts here. This is going to be a challenge, and Notre Dame's got a really good football team, and Marcus Freeman's done a great job since he's been there of building to where they're at this point. Just like Cignetti has done it so quickly here at IU. So all I can say at this juncture is I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun to be a part of it, and we'll see what happens.
Well, and a great point. Greg Rakestraw with us earlier pointed out that game in 91 was the first of NBC's contract with Notre Dame. That kicked off that long time running contract. And so this obviously will be the first game broadcast from Notre Dame, not on NBC. And ironically, NBC now a Big Ten partner. So that's kind of odd, the irony there. But all kinds of good stuff coming up. Looking forward to that. And I know we've only got a minute or so left here. Just completely skipped over the fact that Indiana basketball opens up Big Ten play tonight against the Minnesota Golden Gophers, which doesn't sound like a huge game on paper, and maybe it's not on paper, but it's a conference game, and we've seen the Big Ten Conference has been wicked. Ask Purdue about going to Penn State or whatever the case may be. This conference is at least nine teams deep, Don, in my opinion, and teams that you're going to have to fight for the top spot.
Well, there's no question. I think in any game that you go into now, when you talk about Big Ten play, is critical. I think the league is. I don't think the league is quite what it has been, to be honest, from a total perspective.
Not at the top.
No, I just don't think that they have that marquee team at this juncture. Somebody could turn into that. Michigan State looks like they're pretty good right now. Oregon's another ball club that we don't see or hear a lot about around here these days, but they've got a great coach, Dana Altman. I've always thought that their program out there was very tough, and I think they'll be a factor as well. But right now, I think it's anybody's ball game in the Big Ten, and the team that gets hot, especially here early, can maybe establish itself in that regard. But Indiana has that opportunity, and Indiana's still not what we're seeing. They had 16 turnovers in that game against Miami. That kept Miami in that contest because Indiana really did a pretty good job defensively throughout that ball game. 37% shooting and 23% in the second half from Miami. That's a good defensive performance, but they still were able to hang around because Indiana turned the ball over and gave up some second chance opportunities as well to Miami, a team that they could have, probably dominated from the board perspective and did overall 46-29, but they still gave up 12 offensive rebounds that were second chance opportunities. So right now, this team's still got a lot to work on. I think they're probably getting healthier. I think Kanan Carlisle, I don't know if he'll be back for this ball game or not because he's missed several now. But Gabe Cupps, of course, has also been out. We'll just see how that plays out into it as well. But I do think that the perimeter play for Indiana is the real key for this basketball team. And because they've got the bigs, we know that. They've just got to get the offensive going from a perimeter standpoint and be a little more consistent in that regard if they're going to be a really outstanding ball club throughout the year.
Yeah, we've seen them try to here of late. They looks like they have changed the approach a little bit more perimeter oriented, but yet we'll see how that continues. Don, I appreciate you, sir. We will see you tonight on the broadcast for the Hoosiers hosting the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
Thanks, Jim. See ya.
Thank you, sir. Don Fisher joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Monday from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. We've got more coming up yet. Dustin Dopirak. Big thanks to Greg Rakestraw already and Don there. But we'll be back with more. Continuing here from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios right after these messages. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at cheryl@indyhomepros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at bendavischevrolet.com and bendavisford.com.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you on this Monday from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. I hope you had a great weekend. A little bit of a relaxer for some of us, but not completely. Not as much as I would like for it to have been with basketball games wrapped around on Friday and Monday. The CFP reveal yesterday and all of that, the pressers that came after that. Of course, Curt Cignetti met with the media yesterday to talk about that very thing, and with Indiana's opponent being Notre Dame and just being in the CFP period, it's a huge deal. I mean, I don't think I have to tell anyone that. It is gigantic for the program. It's gigantic. If you look around the country, you see that all of these other teams that are not accustomed to being in, how exciting it is for whether it's SMU, even Clemson, who is used to being in. They got in by the hair of their chins. So they were very, very fortunate to make it into this. But Curt Cignetti yesterday met with the media as we had a post-reveal presser with him. And here's what he had to say in his opening comments.
Okay, busy day today. Obviously, the big news as we find out who our opponent will be for the first round of the college football playoffs, and still juggling portal evaluation with official visits coming in this week and game prep and practice. So quite a busy month. So Notre Dame, I'll be honest, saw them on tape against Purdue. We're getting ready for Purdue. Obviously a very good football team. They've won 10 in a row. Coach Freeman's done a tremendous job with that football team. I've looked at their stats, haven't had a chance to really watch them today with all the media stuff going on. But, I saw enough of them against Purdue to know that they're an excellent football team. And when you look at their scores, they haven't played in very many close games. So I'm sure they'll be quite the challenge. But we're looking forward to it. We're a good football team. I'm confident in our football team. I think that we will apply the lessons learned at Ohio State when we had to go on the road in a hostile environment against a good football team, and apply those up at Notre Dame. And we've got to have a great week of prep.
Curt Cignetti talking about what it's going to take as Indiana heading north to take on the Fighting Irish. It served a couple purposes for the College Football Playoff Committee, I think. And I'm not in the NCAA tournament. Those matchups there's a lot more ability to create matchups than it is in the CFP, because where they fall kind of dictates that, and where they fall is dictated by what is already there and the slight changes that happened over this past weekend with SMU losing a very, very close game in a college conference championship, which if you're in a conference championship and you're ranked in the top 12, you were not moving out. So a lot of people that kept thinking that SMU was whether or not they were going to be in or out, I'm like, dude, this is a given. They're not getting moved out anywhere. So, but where would they fall to? That was the question. And how much would it change the previous week's lineup? That was the only question, because that was truly the only movement I expected. Even though Texas was upset by Georgia, I knew that's not going to create any change as far as they're only going to drop as far as Georgia was, most likely, which that was pretty much the case. And you had Tennessee that was already in there. You had a Notre Dame team that had skated by and to land in the position they landed in. You want to talk about Indiana's record? Well, who the hell did Notre Dame beat? And I'm sorry, Navy and Army had really nice years for the service academies. They weren't that good of teams. So and then what, USC, they did beat Texas A&M early in the season. Solid win. Texas A&M was, I think, a solid team, but that is absolutely not as good a win as, I don't know, Indiana beating Michigan was pretty good, especially since Michigan followed that up with a win at Ohio State. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I think that the committee got the matchups that they wanted. It happened on organically, and I think they're very fortunate for that, because this Indiana Notre Dame matchup, it's a pretty popular one among the fans. Indiana fans they're jacked. I don't know what it's like for Notre Dame people. We'll find out when we get some Notre Dame media on the show, as we will. We'll be talking about that. I'm going to try to get Angelo Pizzo on, since we've got Jimmy Chitwood taking on Rudy. I cannot wait to make that thumbnail for that episode. Angelo, a good friend of the show, having been on numerous times before, but him and David Anspall, the guys behind both Hoosiers and Rudy, along with others, but two very famous sports movies. And while the Hoosiers is not about Indiana University per se, it's just a representation of the basketball side of things, the basketball school versus the football school. Similar, I guess you'd say. But Curt Cignetti, as I said, meeting with the media yesterday, and you just heard his comments, opening comments on taking on the Notre Dame team that they will meet in the college football playoffs on a Friday night on the 20th, 1 week from this Friday, so basically 2 weeks away. The prices for this game are higher than a giraffe's back. I mean, they have skyrocketed, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a bad thing because the average, everyday, normal fan is not going to be able to see this. I know someone, I was told last night, that purchased 2 tickets for $1,400 a piece. I'm like, I'm trying to think of a game that wouldn't involve my daughter that I absolutely had to see that badly. And I'm like, whoo, I guess if you have that kind of money, you can do that. But that's something. Curt Cignetti, more comments from him yesterday and his meeting with the media as Hoosiers prepared to take on Notre Dame. Zach Osterman, I believe, on this question.
I guess you answered there a little bit, but just how much did you allow yourself, if at all, really, to look ahead to the idea of teams you might face, things you might be prepared for, maybe even talking with your team about things like the Ohio State atmosphere and learning from that, because you knew you might have to go on the road to a similar sort of road environment. Just without knowing where you were going, how far ahead do you let yourself look?
Well, I think we addressed the Ohio State issues with the team Monday after the game. And then in terms of, last week we did a Monday routine, which is kind of a walkthrough, 20-minute walkthrough on offense, 5-minute on punt, about 10 minutes of individual and stretch, stride 660s. That's our Monday routine, right? We review the Purdue game, and we preview the next opponent. We didn't know who the next opponent would be. We previewed Georgia for 15 minutes and worked against them in a 20-minute walkthrough, just some base 1st and 10, P10 defenses or plays that they run. Top 3 runs, top 3 passes. The next day, which was a Tuesday practice, off week Tuesday, about an hour and 10-minute practice, we worked Ohio State, corrections, base looks, same thing. Wednesday, which is similar practice to Tuesday, we did work Notre Dame P10, 1st and 10. Tuesday's punt return, Wednesday's kickoff return, PAT field goal. And then, so those practices occurred on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but they were Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday type practices. So that's where we're at.
There you go. That's Curt Cignetti and some of his comments yesterday in regards to taking on the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Notre Dame. As that game comes up on Friday night, 8 p.m., the 20th December, 2024. The first game of the college football playoffs. So it's going to set the stage. And what a better place than to set the stage than in South Bend. I'm just hoping no lake effect snow happens. Right now, the forecast is fine, but I'm not looking at a forecast that's 2 weeks out. I'm sorry, especially in the winter, especially up around the lake. Yeah, forget about that. The prices, ticket prices, unbelievable, astronomical, as we've talked about. Hotel rooms, forget about it. Forget about it. But it is going to be very interesting to see what the Hoosiers can get done in South Bend. This is a game that they can absolutely win. It is a game that will feature Notre Dame's running game against Indiana's running defense. Number 1 in the country, allowing only 70 yards per rush. They held Ohio State in check in the running game. Their mistakes came elsewhere. I think that is going to be a key for Indiana in this game. Eliminate those mistakes because their defense is already solid. They have a very, very good run defense. They have a pretty good pass defense. Getting to the quarterback is going to affect all of that, and something that Indiana has been relatively successful at this season, but not as much in the Ohio State game. Not so much getting to the quarterback in this Notre Dame game going to be of great importance, containing the quarterback. This is the guy that will get out and run with the ball, and hopefully Indiana is ready for that. Brian Haynes has done a superb job running Indiana's defense this year. Curt Cignetti talked about that. We'll hear about that a little bit later. But Brian Haynes, the defensive coordinator for the Hoosiers, currently up a finalist for the Broyles Award winner, which is the top assistant coach in the country, and very, very deserving of that. We'll see how that ends up, but I'm wondering when that voting is in. The Heisman Trophy voting is in. The deadline has now come. Who's going to win the Heisman Trophy? What are your thoughts on that? Will it be Ashton Jeanty from Boise State? Will it be Travis Hunter from Colorado? Dylan Gabriel from Oregon? Does Curtis Rourke make any noise? And Curtis Rourke is in the conversation, but that game that he missed, along with the fact that the games against Michigan and Ohio State, boy, the numbers really took a little bit of a hit. If he just has a semi-average game in those two games and doesn't miss the game against Washington, you're looking at another potential 750 yards of throwing for him. That would have made a huge difference. Although his efficiency is as good as anybody in the country. I haven't checked lately, but the last I looked, he was responsible for, I think it may have been the second highest yards per attempt, yards per catch. That's what matters to me. I don't care that they've thrown for X number of yards, because you can pile up yards in a game. Look at Miami's stats. That's coming on a team that doesn't have great defense. And that's why you hear a lot of Miami people disappointed with the fact that they didn't make it. But no defense, it certainly makes it a problem. We've got lots more coming up for you on the program. Looking forward to talking to Dustin Dopirak after we take this break from the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios. We're back with more right after these messages. If you're looking for a great gift for the Indiana sports fan in your life, just go to isbradio.itemorder.com and you'll find plenty of options, including sweatshirts, hoodies, t-shirts, pullovers, caps, and much more, including our Welcome to the Sig 10 line that benefits the local Boys and Girls Club. That's isbradio.itemorder.com. isbradio.itemorder.com. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Hoosier Hanks East, located on College Ball Road in front of Kroger in Bloomington, is everything you could want. Great food like their custom pizzas, wings, wraps, unbeatable daily drink specials, live music on Fridays, and Hoosier Hanks East is home to Inside Indiana Football and Inside Indiana Basketball coaches shows hosted by Don Fisher. Be on the lookout for Hoosier Hanks ticket giveaways to Indiana and Colts games on social media. Stop by and meet Hoosier Hank at Hoosier Hanks East on College Ball Road in Bloomington. Hungry for something a little different? Well, head to the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford, where oceanic flavors meet southern charm with a Cajun flair, like their loaded voodoo fries, gator bites, or jambalaya, and so much more. The Rusty Gator also has live music each Friday and Saturday night with some of the best local and regional artists around. Visit the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford and get your Cajun on. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's Sour Mash Bourbons, Sweet Mash, and Hard Road Rye, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular Toasted Coconut Rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. Greatly appreciated as always. And joined now by our good friend Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star, the Indy beat writer for the Pacers and our all-around just sports aficionado. How was your weekend, sir?
It's good, Jim. A lot of sports this weekend. So Pacers were in Chicago on Friday night, went there, attended the Big Ten title game on Saturday. And
did you?
I did indeed. We bought tickets thinking it might be IU. Ended up being Penn State. We had obviously both our alma maters covered. So got to check that out. Thought that was, first off, it's a cool experience. It's probably one of the events that's less talked about, obviously, because I don't know, it's just different for some reason in terms of events that Indy hosts. But I thought they did a good job. I thought Oregon was going to whitewash Penn State, to be honest. So
I thought the same thing, and it started out looking like that.
Sure did. Yeah, sure did. I think Oregon's guys, Tez Johnson's just that guy is a super tough cover, man. He is just
comes back. Last I saw, he had 180 plus yards receiving in that game.
11 for $180. It was he was phenomenal. He's just operating at a faster speed than everybody else is. So we had like end zone seats like in the 600 level, but you could sort of see it from there, like the pieces moving basically in terms of just like how much faster he is. And Oregon's just able to do so much stuff to get him open. And you're like, wow, like these guys are really, really good. So I thought it was just impressive Penn State got back in that game. So I mean, Oregon's going to be trouble, for whoever they got. But they're beatable defensively. Obviously, I thought Penn State did a pretty good job of that game, getting getting back in. I thought Drew Aller made some big time throws, and so Penn State obviously acquitted themselves relatively well, put themselves in a position where I don't think anybody thought it was nuts for them to get the 6, obviously in the playoff bracket. But that was fun to watch. I mean, I thought it was like 28-10. I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be. This is going to get ugly and fast, but they obviously rallied back and, had a shot with the ball and 2 minutes to go before Aller gets picked. And I mean, Oregon guy made a phenomenal play on that interception, just impeccable coverage, basically to make that play. So, all around good football game, and obviously there's been a lot of those title games, certainly in the East-West era, that were not particularly competitive. So, that was cool to see now that you're going to go back to not having divisions, basically 2 top teams go at it basically and produce a pretty good game.
Absolutely. It turned out to be a phenomenal game. Surprising me. I was surprised at Penn State's offensive output. That was the most that we have seen from them this season. So that brings up a couple of questions.
Sure.
Obviously, they've tried to do that all year without success. They are able to find that success against
the number 1 team in the country.
Think is the best team in the country. So what does that mean for their defense? Have they really been challenged this year? That just if for anyone, I think that game bodes well for Penn State to see that they actually have that offense to because Penn State to me has the easiest path there is in this CFP because of where they ended up landing. Are they? I forget. Are they playing Boise State first?
We get SMU is there, so they're the 6. SMU is the 11, and Boise State.
And if they win, they play Boise State.
Sure. Yeah.
So I mean, to me, that's the easiest path.
It's the easiest. It's the easiest path, but I do think people are getting ahead of themselves and thinking that it's an easy path.
Right. Easiest, not easier.
Easiest doesn't mean easy at all. I mean, I think obviously SMU's a pretty good football team. I mean, obviously because they were playing at the same time, I didn't watch that ACC title game live, but obviously for them to fall behind the way they did against Clemson and come back to make that a game, to a point that it was decided by a 54-yard field goal, tells you something about them. Obviously, Maxine's back here.
Well, they were down 14-0, Dustin, within 5 minutes of the game's opening up, and I'm like, this game's over.
Right.
And then
and if it goes that way, there's a chance Alabama's in the playoff.
Exactly. If they would have got, I was already thinking, I'm like, all right, well, here's how Alabama's going to back in, and SMU will be out, and I will understand that. But then SMU makes this thunderous charge back, almost knocks Clemson out of the game, make an incredible game. And that's the only thing the committee probably didn't want to see, because much rather have had Alabama in for a number of reasons that you don't have to listen to Greg Sankey whine, the Nation whine, Alabama folks whine. I'm not saying that Alabama is not as good or a better team than SMU. The only thing I will say is don't go to Oklahoma at the end of the season and play one of the worst teams in the SEC, and you can't score a freaking touchdown. You score 3 points on the day. There's no way a team that plays a team of that stature and plays that poorly at that stage of the season is deserving of being in a playoff to me.
Right. I mean, so a whole bunch of stuff here. It's just a fascinating collection of things. And having covered the Big Ten and the SEC, like I know these people. But I think, first off, if you're the SEC, you should work the refs. You should. It's the same. Like there is nowhere in this country in any sport, and in a lot of other things, does it hurt you to work the refs? Does it hurt you to complain? Like this is how we've set it up, and I can't hate anybody for it. It's because it has been successful on so many levels, some of which I'm not going to talk about here. But like working the refs works. We complain about it, but it gets rewarded. Period. At every level and almost every facet of life. So, if you're the SEC, you're doing exactly what you should be doing. You're working the refs. There is no honor in not complaining.
No.
at the end of the day. So 'cause
Hey,
it's just like
there's a reason they say the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Exactly. So they're out there saying like we're not gonna even schedule any hard non-conference games. We might not even be a part of this playoff anymore. Like you guys,
that stuff really aggravates me though.
It's annoying. It's annoying to hear because you're just like what. Because the biggest thing is like, I mean, again, I covered them. You know, I covered the SEC, and it is the best league in the country, and it deserves deference. But the issue is like no amount of deference is ever going to be enough. That's the thing about working the refs. You never got enough calls, you know, because why would you stop complaining? Once you get the benefit of the doubt, what value is it up to you to stop getting the benefit of the doubt? If you don't keep pointing out, again, like if it's basketball, like you don't stop pointing out when you think you're getting held, you know, like LeBron James, no matter how many calls he gets, is not going to stop telling the refs that he thinks he's getting fouled. What's the point of that? You know, like what is the benefit to not doing that? Again, obnoxious, hard to watch, you know, as far as, and, you know, again, covering the NBA, I get complaints about it all the time. And guys on the Pacers, even from Pacers fans, they're like, Mathurin complains too much. Halliburton complains too much. This would eventually it works for you, you know, like it eventually, like not complaining does not help your cause, you know. And so annoying as that might be to see in life, it still works out. So it's like if you're Alabama, you just keep complaining. But like it is annoying because you're like, okay, like that no amount of deference is going to be enough. Like you can't look and say, well, you know, end of the day, we should have done this or we should have done that. Like, you know, really, Dan Orlovsky pointed this out. It's like, you know, Alabama at their best is the best team in the country. You know what the difference is? When Jalen Milroe's good, they're as good as you get. Sometimes he's not. I mean, I called him last year. I called him the biggest chaos agent in college football, and he absolutely was. I mean, like, that defines him as a college quarterback because, I mean, that's how they beat Auburn. I mean, he like fumbles snaps. They're 4th and 20 something, and then he just throws one in the back of the end zone, and they beat Auburn, and they go to the SEC title game and win. Like, he is always like he is on the tightest tightrope of any quarterback I have seen, and so like that's who they are. If Jalen Milroe has steady games, Alabama's 12-0, you know. But I mean, he was giving up pick sixes against Oklahoma, and that's the difference. And so it's tough to know what to do with them because of that. You know, they're not like this steady steamroller of a team. And so, like, yes, if you get great Jalen Milroe, they can win the national championship. If you get terrible Jalen Milroe, they could be out in the first round and lose 30-0, you know, and that's who they are. But like the SEC has no business acknowledging that. And agreeing that that's the obvious case. So they're like, we're Alabama. We schedule these great games every year. We challenge ourselves for you. It's like we played Wisconsin for you. And you're like seriously, yeah. You know, I mean, it's annoying, but it's like the other thing is like college football is madness, you know, and it's like everybody wants there to be precedent set. And you're like, no, it's like it's 144 teams that only get to play 12 games. Like it's not going to be cut and dry. It's going to be weird every year. Like the criteria is going to look different every year. You're not going to be able to say, oh, well, you get rewarded for this and you don't get rewarded for that, because it's just you're trying the best you can. Like, look, like Indiana, like if Indiana schedules the same way next year that it's scheduled this year, then there should be a penalty for its non-conference schedule. But they had no, like, what in the entire history of Indiana football, certainly that which we've covered, would give them reason to schedule difficult in the first year of a new head coach. Like, why? Like they have no reason to do that. But if you're 11 and if you know you're going to be 11-1, obviously they should take chances, you know, like, but like, I get why they scheduled Charlotte and Western Illinois and Florida International this year. They had a new coach, like they should go try to get 3 wins so that they're set up. You know,
and let's be honest, that schedule was set for the most part, with the exception of the Louisville game,
right,
being switched. And complete honesty, I think that they could have played and won that Louisville game, although would that have cost them a home game? I don't recall.
But you had no reason to think that. Like,
right.
Again, if you knew this was going to be an 11-1 team, that it was a team capable of beating Michigan, you know, first off, going in, that Michigan, defending national champion Michigan, was going to be 6-7-5. Like, would have played that game because you would have thought, okay, you got to make sure that you take your chances to make your case to the playoff committee. At what point in this offseason is as good as much as exciting as Cignetti was, even in the offseason in terms of what he was saying, like history of Indiana football tells you, like you got to be prepared that you're going to just need to scratch and claw to win 3 games to get to a bowl game. So like set yourself up with 3 winnable non-conference games. So you set up, your first year head coach. If you tee your first year head coach to go 6-6, that's the smart thing to do as an Indiana athletic director. Because like, why would you think the last time you had a new head coach with a truly new head coach, that wasn't part of the regime, a turnover? He went 1-11. That was a confident guy and who would come off a place where he won as a coordinator and won a lot. Okay. And so, but you were starting over, new assistants, whole new regime, lost some guys to transfers. What happened? You went 1-11. So like you had to prepare for the possibility that you might go 1-11, not 11-1. So, like my point being is like, if you're the committee, it's fair next year, if Indiana's in this place again, to judge them against, to judge their non-conference schedule that harshly because they had the opportunity and they had reason to believe. This year, they had no reason to believe that they'd be in this spot. So the point is like, yeah, so they got some benefit of the doubt this year. It's not going to be the case next year. And it doesn't have to be. Like, we're not owed this perfect amount of precedent. It's college football. It's bound to be madness. So it's like, the SEC is doing what it should be doing. But no, their non-conference scheduling should matter.
Save for playing 8 conference games.
Yeah, exactly. You could play nine non-conference games with the SEC. You can go to that.
Now, and their comeback to that is, well, the SEC mandates a Power 4 opponent. Well, okay, yeah, but your Power 4 opponent can be anybody else's lapdog.
Sure.
So that doesn't always. And then someone else pointed out, you know what? Instead of Alabama whining that they didn't make it, how about don't schedule Mercer?
I mean, again, I get it why they scheduled Mercer. Like, first off, they did not make the playoff because they scheduled Mercer. Like,
no, they didn't make the playoffs because they lost to a 6-6 Oklahoma team,
sure,
and couldn't score a freaking point. And they lost to a Vanderbilt team who, granted, was a surprisingly better team and a much tougher team than any Vanderbilt team.
Best Vanderbilt team I've ever seen.
Yeah. And Diego Pavia did a tremendous. Hell, they beat who else? They beat somebody else. They were ranked for a time. So loss does not.
They gave Texas a game
against them.
They gave Texas a game. Like, that was the big thing. They beat somebody else, but they gave Texas a game, and that's kind of.
I don't hold the Vanderbilt loss against them. I hold the Oklahoma loss completely against them. Had that happened at the start of the season, that's one thing. It happened at the end of the year. So
sure.
This is you're telling me this is where you are right now. That is not a deserving team. Another question is Georgia. Georgia's starting quarterback is injured without question. Now, how severely he's injured, we don't know. He came back into the game for like the final play the other night, but I knew that he wasn't going to be throwing the ball because he had just spent the entire half with an ice bag on his elbow. So you're not going to come out throwing when you've been icing something down. But that means their backup quarterback is also hurt. But yet that didn't seem to play anything into their future like it did Florida State a year ago when they lost their starting quarterback.
But they were in an automatic position, basically. I mean, they won. If they lost, obviously that'd be a different ballgame. But they won, and obviously conference champions are guaranteed a bye in that case. And so you couldn't put them behind Boise State. Would have been. I don't even want to think about what that would have looked like. Basically, I mean, the SEC would have lost its mind. And Georgia's still good. I mean, the thing is, like, Georgia's still good. If you're anybody else in this playoff, you don't want to play Georgia. And again, like,
there's a ton of pressure on the SEC teams. They have to win in this environment. I mean, if they were to come out and go 0-3. Oh boy, you want to talk about opening up Pandora's box for next season.
I'm not going to lie to you, though. It's not going to happen.
I don't expect that to happen either.
No, I mean, they might go 3. I I actually think they'll go 3-0.
Well, aren't they all? They all have home. Well, not home games, but
Georgia has a bye. Georgia has a bye
and 2 home games.
Yeah, exactly. So Texas has Clemson,
and basically Georgia has a home game because aren't they going to be playing in Atlanta?
No, Sugar Bowl.
Oh, they're at the Sugar Bowl. Okay.
Sure. I mean, like the entire South. Like when it comes to these games, the entire Southeast is their home. Is their home field.
Exactly. So they still, in essence, that's a home game. The Superdome will be taken over by Georgia.
Yeah, and that's the point. I mean, now, but the point is, look, like, again, I have a lot of deference for them. Like, I mean, I'm saying this, I'm talking them down to some extent. Like, again, what they've produced an absurd percentage of NFL play of the NFL.
And that was another thing. I did see someone talking about, as someone who has access to all this film and covers all these teams, yada yada.
Yeah, I saw it.
They were talking, and I get basing on future talent. Well, that's okay. But if the Heisman Trophy were based on what you do in the future, the Heisman Trophy winners would all be different. There would be a whole lot of guys that won the Heisman that didn't because of what their futures are. I get that the SEC has more future NFL talent on, but that has nothing to do. It's what you do right now. And what you've done right now. And so,
I mean, I get, like, again, like all of this is worthy of some level of deference. Like, I don't think that it shouldn't play in because it's just like, I get the idea of even saying that the Heisman Trophy should not consider more of what's going to happen in the future, but to say, like, all right, like, everybody loves this guy at the next level. Like, shouldn't that be a factor? Like, is this guy that's performing, like, we've certainly seen quarterbacks that never made it, in the pros and nobody thought was going to make it at the professional level. And everybody looking at it and saying, okay, well, isn't he just a system guy? Okay. Are there guys in the past, Gino Torretta, basically back in Miami in 92 or somebody like that you look at and say, like, should this guy really have got it because he was just on a team that was loaded? Basically, he just had to throw the ball up and Lamar Thomas runs, and Coleman Bell and AC Tellison run out and go get it. Should those guys, like, should you be, basically win a Heisman as a quarterback because you just had the best players around you, when somebody like, Marshall Faulk is right there for San Diego State or somebody, in the distant past. So to not inflame any other, more close tensions, but, like, I get the idea of that. I get the idea of saying, like, these guys are really, really loaded. Like, this whole team is going to be pros. If you put this team in the playoff, it might win the whole thing. And they stubbed their toe once, like, that's an argument for a 4-team playoff, basically, that it's like somebody got beat in September when they were missing their quarterback or whatever. And, like, look at these dudes, like, they can win the whole thing. But for a 12-team playoff, when you're talking about 3 losses, it's a different ballgame. And it's just like, the question is just how far is it fair to take this level of deference? Because, like, that, I don't want to say concern, but, like, my thought was, if Bama gets in, like, let's not act like they're not going to want, like, Ole Miss and South Carolina in there too.
Well, of course, they wanted to be an SEC tournament.
Anybody who thinks that the SEC would not be complaining today if Bama got in, is missing the game.
South Carolina and Ole Miss and whomever else along the line.
Are those
they want it to be the SEC tournament in essence?
Right, exactly. Those are good teams. And again, they're going to work the refs for the entirety of this. They're not going to stop. And again,
work the refs.
Nothing suggests that they should. Nothing suggests that they will ever be penalized for complaining. Everything suggests that they will be rewarded. So they should. And no matter what happens next year, they're going to complain next year. But as I think, again, they got 3 2-loss teams in. And they're all top 9 seeds, like, and there was never a doubt that was going to happen. And there's a good chance they can win the whole thing. There's a good chance Georgia can win this. Texas can win this. Tennessee might, like, Tennessee could shock Ohio State and then beat Oregon. Like, it's not out of the question for me that that's possible. I mean, like, they could do it. And yeah, a Bama with Jalen Milroe cooking could have come in and won some games. But it's just like, at a certain point, you have to say, like, all right, like, it can't just be you guys. We can't throw everybody in because, like, okay, again, if you put Bama in, then you have to put, like, then it's like, okay, like, then you can make a case for South Carolina, Ole Miss. And like, how many teams do you have to leave out? Like, what are you owed? Are you really owed that Indiana doesn't get to play in this thing? Are you really owed that SMU doesn't get to play in this thing? Are you not allowed to see anybody else's season as viable? Do you have to constantly tear down everybody else and say that you guys are the big boys and you're the only ones who are allowed to play in this? Like, at a certain point, it's like, is that what it's really supposed to be all about? It's just making you guys happy.
I think one of the cool things that we're seeing, though, is how gigantic this Indiana Notre Dame game has become.
Sure.
The ticket prices, unbelievable. Super Bowl-esque.
Well, it's the only game that has that like both. It's not the only good game, but like two teams in the same state that almost never haven't played each other in like 30 years.
Yes.
And
33 to be exact.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I was there, unfortunately.
That's
Dustin. I was a baby. Someone was carrying me in a cradle.
Feel like that's not true.
Me too. I was just hoping it might slip by.
Not so much. No. I recall the Jerome Bettis era at Notre Dame, for I am old too.
Trent Green, baby. Trent Green was Indiana's quarterback.
Oh yeah, wow. Amazing.
How about that?
Yeah.
Hey, we've got more coming up. Dustin Dopirak is with us from the Indy Star, and we'll be back. A little word from Cignetti on the way out. We'll return to the Hard Truth Studios right after this.
Yeah, Curt, you mostly stayed away from commenting kind of on the playoff rankings, except kind of over the last 24 hours. You made a couple of media appearances, weighed in a little bit. Were you frustrated kind of just having to defend Indiana's resume at 11-1 and kind of seeing you guys take some shots nationally from coaches, people, that were kind of analyzing the situation?
That's all in the past. Our eyes are forward right now on what we got to get done in terms of preparation for the next opponent, and also handling the other things that coaches have to handle nowadays in December. This team's accomplished a lot. I'm proud of what they've accomplished. I think the coaches have done a great job, players have done a great job. But in saying that, no one is satisfied. No one's satisfied. The players are hungry for more. The coaches are hungry for more.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
Country living is just a swing away. It can be hard to find the exact home that fits your family's needs, so there couldn't be a better time to build a new home with Property Shore Construction. Now building exclusively south of Bloomington within the Stonecrest Golf Community. Choose from one of the gorgeous Stonecrest Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com.
Hoosier Hanks East, located on College Ball Road in front of Kroger in Bloomington, is everything you could want. Great food like their custom pizzas, wings, wraps, unbeatable daily drink specials, live music on Fridays, and Hoosier Hanks East is home to Inside Indiana Football and Inside Indiana Basketball coaches shows hosted by Don Fisher. Be on the lookout for Hoosier Hanks ticket giveaways to Indiana and Colts games on social media. Stop by and meet Hoosier Hank at Hoosier Hanks East on College Ball Road in Bloomington. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer. Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Memorial in Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Memorial in Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you on this Monday from the Hard Truth Distilling Company Studios, joined by our good friend Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. And last night, Dustin, the Pacers going for back-to-back wins as they've had great difficulty stringing wins together, and it was looking good for a while at home up at Gamebridge, and but unfortunately, the 7-17 Hornets come out with a 113-109 win. Outscoring the Pacers in the fourth quarter by 3. And after, the second half was basically tied, other than that 3-point bulge by the Hornets. The 20 points each in the third quarter, a low scoring quarter for both of these teams, but the Hornets able to get out of there with a win over the Pacers. And that's a win that
it's a bad
they have to have. Yeah, that's a horrible loss.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really bad loss. I wrote about it today, and I said, they've had worse efforts. Their offenses looked worse. Their defenses looked worse. But this is the most, how do you lose that game to that team loss that they've had? Charlotte's had 7 guys out on the injury report.
Wow. Who the hell did they have? Would they call up some guys from the local high school?
They did not.
Did they get Fishers to fill in?
They did not. What they did was they played extended minutes to Isaiah Wong, who was the Pacers' 52nd pick in the 2023 draft. They played him 4 minutes in NBA games last year. They had him on a 2-way contract all year. So, he was almost exclusively a Mad Ants player. And they let him walk this offseason, basically. Kept Quentin Jackson on his 2-way, created new 2-ways for the 2 rookies, Tristan Newton and Enrique Freeman. Let Isaiah Wong walk. And Isaiah Wong went out and scored 9 points in 18 minutes. Now, that's the most he's ever played in an NBA game. But you remember him from Miami because he was deadly. You remember he was obviously a problem for that IU team in the tournament. They were playing 2-way guys. Daquan Jeffries has, I think, played 2 games this year. He hit, a pair of threes. Who else you got here? Basically, this problem. Vasa Micic, point guard, I from a former Yugoslavian Republic. I'm not sure which, probably Serbia. But he played 10 seasons after he got drafted in Europe before he finally came over. He is a problem, and he's a tough dude to deal with. But all the same, so he was a problem. Brandon Miller obviously is a guy that can carry you. Brandon Miller is fantastic for all whatever you want to talk about. Obviously his college experience and whatnot, just to be coy about it. But he had 26, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 3-pointers. He's a problem. But the Hornets didn't have nearly enough firepower. They should have been able to win this game. And the Pacers had just a lot of bad things that didn't work right. Hornets did a good job of keeping them from going in transition, but their big 4 guys, Halliburton, Turner, Mathurin, and Siakam, I think were 14 of 35 from the floor, I think is right. None of them scored more than 11. TJ McConnell carried them, had 30. They just, again, those guys just weren't good enough. They had trouble making shots. Basically, any stretch that they were making shots, they couldn't get stops. Any stretch that they were playing good defense, they couldn't, any stretch they were playing good defense, they couldn't score. Any stretch that any period where they were making shots, they couldn't defend. So they could never get any kind of separation whatsoever, and barely ever got a lead. They were never up by more than 2. And so, I just asked, they got beat 45-29 on the boards. I saw one of the comments. Miles Turner got 1 rebound in 20 minutes. He had foul trouble, and so that was an issue. And they played kind of a smaller switching lineup, which obviously you had to do when they really didn't have a lot of 5s. Charlotte had as an option. The Pacers kind of had to play smaller in this game. But you got a rebound, and I just asked Rick, okay, what did you see go wrong there? You lose 19-4 in second chance points, and he's just like, well, they tried harder than we did, and there you go. That's is what he said, and so ultimately, he says, we got to try harder. And you're just like, okay, well, well, thanks. That's my headline, much appreciated.
That sounds like some IU basketball stuff there.
I mean, it's different, but there are some, some similarities. I mean, it's a team that just hasn't been able to get out of its own way. It hasn't been able to figure itself out. And part of that is the injuries, but, again, like nobody feels bad for you in this league. For those injuries. I mean, I'll stand up for them in terms of the players they've been missing, because I don't think anybody respects them enough. Or at least there's a lot in the fan base that don't. Aaron Nesmith and Ben Shepherd are guys that really, really play hard, and they're like kind of the connective tissue for this team. They run to corners, they defend people, they move the ball, and that matters. And so what you're left without them, and Andrew Nemhard's been out, but he's coming back, and he's another guy that's important in terms of just being a secondary ball handler.
Hey, is he related to the Nemhard kid on Gonzaga?
Yeah, it's his brother.
I was wondering.
Yeah, that's his brother. I mean, Andrew played at Gonzaga. That's why Ryan's at Gonzaga now. Ryan started at Creighton. So yeah, that's his younger brother. And they're very similar. If you watch Ryan, there's a lot of similarities to their game because they were just, grown up the same way. But the issue is, again, those pieces have all been important. But again, they've played and lost to teams that have been as devastated or more by injuries. And if you still have your big four guys, you should be able to just find enough talent, enough buckets and win. And again, they had guys that were off last night. Pascal Siakam failed to score in double figures for his first time as a member of the Pacers. And he played 66 regular season games and 17 playoff games before last night, scored in double figures in every single one of those. It was 3 of 8 last night and didn't make it. So that's an issue. But I mean, the thing about it is, though, is like you've got enough talent. The tough thing is it has not been easy to make Halliburton, Mathurin, Turner, and Siakam all fit together as a group. And it's not because they're selfish guys. It's they have different styles of play. Halliburton and Turner have this really good, pick and roll connection, pick and pop connection, ball screen kind of work. But making everybody else fit in that has been kind of interesting. I mean, Siakam can space the floor there, but Mathurin and Siakam are both guys that can make a lot happen in isolation. And so it's like, okay, like they didn't really build this offense around isolation and because they want to keep the ball moving. When it's popping is when it's at their best. But it's like when things aren't working the way that they want it to, that eventually, one of those guys is like, okay, I'll just take it in ISO and I'll go get a bucket. And it's like and that's probably the best move when things don't work as well, but it's just it just doesn't seamlessly work the same way when you're trying to make sure those two guys get shots and those two guys are involved. And again, having two guys that are good ISO scorers, outside of other stars is not always easy. It's not always easy to kind of at a basic level keep the mouths fed, but just make those puzzle pieces fit together. And so they've had a hard time doing it. They did a great job on Friday, and I thought maybe they'd figured something out because they just did a really good job of spacing and cutting and getting easy baskets against the Bulls. They had like 66 points to the paint or something like that. I think it was 56. They had 30 in the first half, and then they shot the ball really well. They shot 18 to 29 from 3. And you thought there'd be some carryover. And you also thought that, this team would take a team like Charlotte seriously because they don't, they haven't won enough games to not take anybody seriously because they're coming up against it. And they're going to face, they've got a stretch that's going to get really difficult. They've got 2 winnable games thanks to kind of the reschedules for the NBA Cup. They get, Philly and New Orleans in games for teams that didn't make it. But then they've got a 3-game road trip, Phoenix, Sacramento, Golden State. They're going to have a hard time getting a win there. They come back. They play the best team in the West in Oklahoma City. And then they got 2 and 3 days at Boston. And they come home and play Milwaukee on New Year's Eve. There could not be a win there. It's altogether possible they lose all of those. And they could play well and lose every one of those basketball games. So they could be in trouble fast. And so leaving a game like Charlotte on the table is brutal at this stretch, and they left Brooklyn on the table and Toronto. I mean, they've left winnable games on the table. And so it's bad. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, like you can't look at what's going on. And like, again, they can pull up, they have talent to pull up, but pull the plane up. But it's just right now, I mean, that's a bad loss for this time of year. And again, like, I mean, they've had worse efforts, like it wasn't a terrible basketball game all the way around. But it's a game you have no business losing.
Absolutely. We've got to take another break. I'm hoping that Dustin can stick around because we have not talked
For a
about
bit.
Indiana basketball.
Okay. Yeah.
And actually the Big Ten, which I've said is going to be a bloodbath. Well, trust me, Purdue skates by Maryland last night. UCLA goes into Oregon and wins. This is going to be a meat cleaver of a conference, but we've got more coming up. Thank goodness we have our good friend Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star with us. Make sure you're giving him a follow and keeping up with all his content, especially regarding the Indiana Pacers. We're back with more right after these messages. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing, or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition, or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer, and your best place for new and used vehicles. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Enjoy healthy, delicious meals at home without the hassle with the Fresh Fork. Chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to your doorstep. Proudly fueling IU athletes and now available to you with a menu that's always fresh and diverse, from hearty proteins to fresh salads. The Fresh Fork empowers you to make better food choices without compromising. Let the Fresh Fork help transform your lifestyle for a healthier way of living today at thefreshforkonline.com. Use promo code RADIO20 and get $20 off your first order. Hungry for something a little different? Well, head to the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford, where oceanic flavors meet southern charm with a Cajun flair, like their loaded voodoo fries, gator bites, or jambalaya, and so much more. The Rusty Gator also has live music each Friday and Saturday night with some of the best local and regional artists around. Visit the Rusty Gator Fork and Ale in Bedford and get your Cajun on. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, coming to you, of course, from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios, joined by our good friend Dustin Dopirak from the Indy Star. Make sure you are giving him a follow and staying up with all the things that he provides, which is he is one of the most he's one of our favorites. He's one of the most knowledgeable across the board on sports because he's covered it all. And that's what it takes, man. And we love that, man. Dustin, the Big Ten, I'm kind of at the start of the year, I'm like, okay, I don't know who's going to be what. I don't know. Oh, Indiana, it's going to be Indiana. It's going to be Purdue, probably Illinois, maybe UCLA. Now it's like, oh, I'm down to 9 teams that is very capable of being at the top. We've seen multiple losses already. Purdue at home last night, they're able to hold off a Maryland team that is now 8-2 that is going to be good. UCLA goes to Eugene and knocks off undefeated Oregon, number 12 Oregon. 73-71. I knew UCLA was going to be good, but then you've got Oregon into that mix. You've got Illinois, like I mentioned. You've got Michigan State, Purdue, Ohio State. This conference is just going to be a bloodbath, and probably, I'm guessing the champion now might have, I don't know what the record is. 7 losses is seeming like a very distinct possibility in this conference this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's really wide open. I mean, I've barely had a chance to watch, obviously, because I've been watching football when I haven't been watching, Pacers games. But no, I mean, just looking at this slate, you mentioned Purdue goes to Penn State and gets beat. That's not a thing that happens very often. Penn State's going to be an annoying basketball team. It certainly seems like, like Sox.
That's the thing. If you have to worry about going to Penn State, what the hell are you going to have? What's it going to be like when you have to go to UCLA, when you have to go to Oregon, when you have to go to Illinois, when you have to go to Maryland, when you have to go to even Indiana? It doesn't matter. There are so many teams. It's like, forget it. There are no off nights.
No, not many. I mean, you look all the way down this board. I mean, again, like overall record, nobody's worse than 5-4. And, that's Rutgers with 2 of the best recruits in the country, and so Rutgers isn't going to be, it's not going to be a walk when you're playing Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. It is not going to be easy for anybody in this league. Yeah, I mean, Michigan's won 7 straight. They're 8-1. They got to win over Wisconsin. Michigan State's trouble. Purdue, like you said. Oregon. I was really impressed. Maryland just absolutely beating Ohio State's doors off. The other night before they lose to Purdue on the road. Like Maryland's trouble. It's not going to be easy. You're not going to have, and it's just it is sort of how college basketball is going to work. I mean, college football is working similarly. That you don't know what you have until these teams hit the air, because there's so much transfer driven. Like I was just looking at the list of like leading scorers. I'm like, man, I don't remember a lot of these guys. It's just like some of the best players in the league right now are guys that I wasn't around to cover 2 years ago. And so there's been that much turnover and that many guys moving in a short amount of time. And so it's just like these teams are recreating themselves, and you don't kind of know who they're going to be. And sometimes it gets better, sometimes it gets worse. But I mean, there are just a lot of teams that are going to be tough outs. So yeah, and obviously it raises the issue for Indiana that if you're not going to be functioning at a really high level, things can go the other direction for you very, very fast.
Here's a funny comment. Brian says that talking about Woodson sits on a cushion. Well, I just noticed.
I wasn't sure he was referring to me.
No, I just noticed this in the last game. There is a cushion that looks like a cube that is at least 1.5 feet tall, I think, that Woody uses to sit on. I'm assuming it's so he's basically half standing and maybe easier on the knees.
On the back too. That literally was what Miles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton sit on the bench.
Yeah, so it just eases getting up and down because, for one thing, if you've sat on one of those chairs as a normal person, you know that it's like, oh, you're getting up. You're not it's not scooting you up. So imagine being 6'6" or taller than that. It folds you up even more. So I'm not going to get on him for that.
No.
But there has been a lot of negativity around the basketball program for various reasons. The play on the court, people are kind of tired of what I've seen, the same old, and that that can go on anywhere, and it will go on. Anywhere. And you can complain about the job that there are pro Woody fans and anti Woody fans. I don't care which you are. I keep trying to tell people I couldn't care less because I know that the situation will take care of itself one way or the other.
Yeah.
If he's not succeeding, there's not going to be a choice because the environment has gotten really toxic. So that is added to it. But if he is successful, they don't fire successful coaches, people.
Right.
And you don't get a new coach if you are being successful. So if that is your hope, then you're going to have to endure a bad season or one that's bad by that's another question is, well, what constitutes a bad season? I think you're seeing it, not being in contention to win the title, especially when you have the talent that is obviously in Bloomington. But also, there is no reason for the negativity that is going on around the program, because a lot of it is coming out of the program itself. And that's never a good sign for anything. When you have that kind of outside noise that's unnecessary but real, like being a constant buzz, and that is exactly what's going on right now.
Yeah, it seems that way. Obviously, I'm not as close to it, so it's just like I don't know who said what to who as far as anything is concerned. But to your point, I mean, like, and that's how I am with all of these, because I do think that, like, because of the news cycle being what it is, the way we talk about these things, what it is, that it is constantly, I sort of want to. I don't have time to address Andy's comment in general. Like, I mean, like in terms of like what you hear and what you don't hear. I mean, I'm going through it a lot with this Pacers team that I think everybody keeps asking me, like, Dustin, what's going on? Like, as though I'm sitting with this secret that, like, I just can't tell.
And sometimes you are.
Yeah,
and
sometimes it's not that you are sitting on. Like, you're not sitting on a secret. You're sitting on something that somebody told you that you can't.
There are things.
It's not that you can't report it. It's that you do not have like stuff that's actionable from a reporting standpoint in some ways,
or it is not beneficial. I kind of go back to it's like the government and the CIA and all that stuff. There are some things that people just don't need to know. I'm going to be honest, when it comes to like national security, and I'm not putting this in that category,
right?
But there are
in the sense of like, when is something,
you don't need to know how the sausage is made all the time,
right?
But
like if you cover, like if you cover the, if you cover national security, you don't like you don't want to report anything until the troops are out, like that kind of thing. It's just like something happened, and it's like, okay, like. They talk about like bin Laden and whatnot. Like, you don't want to report anything if you don't know those guys have left. Because if you report that, even if you know it's happening, then that could make its way to, somebody who could use it to do something horrible. And so you want to keep that in mind when you report. So that's not what we're talking about. But, obviously, but it's just like, it's not always the case. There's not always something that all of us are sitting there with that everybody knows that just nobody wants to report. I think the Pacers are just not very good at basketball. Like, I don't think that I'm not sitting in anything that like secretly it's because Tyrese did this or this one hooked up with that one's girlfriend or this one has a drinking problem. Like, I don't have any of that. Like, I just think it's a team that's not making shots. It's not playing super well together. I think everybody wants there to be some deeper explanation, and partly so there can be somebody that can be mad at, in terms of why it's not working. And so there is, I think, a desire. And because we have the news cycle being what it is, people just glom onto that idea. And, sometimes there's this thing and a lot of times there isn't. A lot of times it's just team doesn't play well together. But, to your point, like, I think what it really, the way I always kind of view it is a lot of people want to be the first one to say this should happen. This should be the move. And because I've decided this should happen, it should happen now. It should happen immediately. Like, what's the point of waiting? We've already come to this conclusion that this isn't going to work out. So what's the point in waiting 1 minute longer to make a decision? And the thing about it is it usually makes sense to let things play out. Sometimes people get better. It's not never happened before. The coach was on a bad trajectory and everybody thought he should be fired, and he pulled a really good year, out. And all of a sudden you're like, well, actually that guy's not so bad. And so, and you give more deference to guys who, have experience. And like, for instance, like, there's some complaints about Rick Carlisle. Well, Rick Carlisle's won more games than Red Auerbach. And so you have to understand, like, he is going to come up with something to, he is like, and so like, you're going to give deference to that guy. If you're the Indiana Pacers, you're like, okay, like, this guy's won a lot. He's won a championship. He's 24th year as a head coach, and ultimately we like this guy. So we're going to give him a chance to work through this. They're not playing well, and certainly you can blame him for some of that, but you got to trust that your guy's going to come through. Obviously, Mike Woodson is an alum, the whole bit has been an NBA coach. Like, he's going to get some opportunity. But again, at a certain point, your record is, you are what your record says you are. And, like, you come to the point that you have to move on. Forcing that to happen faster generally doesn't go well. Because it creates, more acrimony, more division within the fan base, within the alumni, within the school, within the university, all those kinds of things. And so it's like, more or less, it's sort of, benefits you to kind of wait until everybody knows what has to be done, where it's sort of an obvious case. And so you've given up of opportunity to make it clear one way or the other, what the move has to be. And that's kind of where it is. And so, I think, but like to our point here, like you just said, like them not being in contention to win a title, they have not played a Big Ten game yet. They play a Big Ten game starting tonight. And so you'll see, that's kind of what it is. And so, like, he's going to get an opportunity. He's recruited this team, that it is a talented looking team. It doesn't seem to be a team that plays together really well at this point. So you don't know. And so again, guys, not everybody knows this story. Not everybody knows, like, Mike's terrible and everybody, wants to fire him. And like, he is sitting on, like, he purposefully coaches this team to lose. Like, no one's holding on to that, like no one's sitting there with that information. Like, again, it's sports. Everybody goes in and tries hard to win, and somebody wins, somebody loses. And when somebody loses enough, they get fired. It's that simple, and
there's a lot of the time,
not always nefarious.
It's not specific stories that you may know, but it's enough information that that you can just put things together. But
you could say, okay, well, this
I have learned that, like when Archie Miller was here, it was I beat on him like he stole something every day, like it was my job. And now, would I do that again? Probably, but in a different manner, because that in and of itself became so negative. And I learned from that personally. I'll tell you, because it's like, what good is that? So you have to learn.
Right. And it's different in terms of tone and all that, in terms of like how, like when you're reporting, and you're just writing, like you obviously have a different medium, and sort of there's sort of tone when you're just sort of on TV talking about it. And it's just, but yeah, it's just a question of, like, again, they're going to get the opportunity. They're going to play the games. And when they lose enough, the tone is what the tone is, and it's sort of, the story writes itself eventually. So we'll see. But I got to go because I got another one of these to do. So appreciate you,
my friend. As always, have a great week, brother.
Will do. You too.
Dustin Dopirak joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. So grateful to have him. Make sure you're giving him a follow as well. Always fun to have Dustin on. He is extraordinarily knowledgeable in this game. And it has been a fun day. And as a matter of fact, before we head out, Curt Cignetti asked about his old friend, his former boss, Nick Saban, a reference, not that he made this reference about Indiana, but it was just using a Nick Saban-esque reference to rat poison, and whether or not how he's gone about keeping Indiana players from eating the rat poison.
Well, I'm not really concerned about rat poison right now. Keeping the main thing is the main thing. And I think we did a pretty good job of that last week, and we got to do it again this week. And then next week, got to have a great week of preparation, stacked days to put ourselves in the best position. I think Dan Lanning's situation might be a little different because they're coming off a championship game victory, right? And then they've got a bye week. So our situations are a little different. I have a tremendous amount of respect for the job he did at Oregon, another Coach Saban disciple to some degree. So I'm confident that we'll do the things we have to do to put ourselves in the best position to play on Saturday or Friday night.
There's Coach Curt Cignetti. And you know what? The ability to get to talk football in December is awesome. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a blast, and I look forward to getting to do it. I'm jacked about football and what's coming up in this CFP game with Notre Dame. And it's been a fun day. Big thanks, of course, to Greg Rakestraw, the voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fisher, and Dustin Dopirak for his extended stay today. Most importantly, thanks to each and every one of you for being with us. We're back tomorrow to do it all again. We'll have plenty more to talk about. Post-game show tonight with Indiana taking on Minnesota, and basketball opening up Big Ten play. And we're back tomorrow to do it all again as well. Appreciate you guys. Until then, I am Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports